Hey, it's Jeremy from Lucky Hat Outdoors, and we're rapidly approaching our 1-year anniversary. Maybe not with YouTube, but with me being back in Louisiana and spending time on the water. And I wanted to take the opportunity to put together a quick video and basically show you what we've caught fish with over the course of this year. So what I've got laid out here in front of me is almost every lure that we've used for inshore fishing, and on every one of them that I'm going to show you today, we've caught at least 3 or 4 fish. I can assure you that they work. So in Louisiana, it'd be remiss if we didn't start with a popping cork. There's not a boat that'll go by south of I-10 that doesn't have one of these dangling off a rod somewhere. This is ubiquitous, and every time we go on the water, we have something rigged with a cork. And normally it's tied with about 1.5 to 2 feet of leader line, and I use the Seagar 20-pound. And fishing plastics, it'll normally be, I use a 1/8 ounce jig head, and I've been using the matrix shad a lot lately. But with live bait, I use a 2/0 Kale hook, and sometimes I'll add a split shot, sometimes I won't. And what this does is the popping of the cork on the water simulates kind of the sound and splash of feeding speckled trout. And when you pop it, it takes your bait, whatever it is, brings it up, and lets it kind of drift down. And that's one of the reasons I use the 1/8 ounce jig head, is because I feel like when you pop it, the 1/8 ounce falls just a little bit slower. And with live bait, I've gotten to where I almost don't use any weight at all, that I'll pop it and let it flop, and the bait itself will kind of panic and do its own thing. And it's a really good strike indicator, even as big as it is. Like a 12-inch speckled trout will still take this. Now I have a few preferences. For one, I like the color yellow. I find that the orange is a little bit hard for me to see, and there's some other like colors of green and orange and combinations that just don't work. Straight yellow tends for me to be the best color, and I like this more oval cigar shape because I use the cup style, and they sound better, but you end up fighting against the fish, especially with speckled trout. It's hard to get a good hook set because you have to get the cork out of the way. I prefer weighted because they'll cast better in the wind, and I see no point in having an unweighted popping cork. And I prefer, I don't know what brand this is, but I know H&H makes some with a flexible wire, and I think you get more life out of your popping cork like that. Which brings us to, we'll just stick with the popping cork theme. You know, we've talked a lot this year about the matrix shad, and if you watch a fishing show anywhere in Louisiana, they'll tell you about the matrix shad. These things have produced consistently to the point where I don't buy anything else, and I'm basically using 3 colors, and they work. This particular one is a green hornet. It's kind of a greenish red, and this one's been in a lot of fish mouths. You can't see it, but there's little chunks taken out of it. It's a little bit faded. It's actually got a piece, a speckled trout lip on the hook right here. You know, this particular lure has caught fish. And my other go-to color has been the shrimp creole. And these two, the green hornet and the shrimp creole matrix shad, have caught almost every speckled trout that you've seen on video for me. Every so often I've used the limit head, and it hasn't been as productive. And the pattern has been, if the water is clean and clear, the shrimp creole with the red flake is the way to go. If it's a little bit murky, the green hornet is fired up. And I'm told when it's really bad that the limit head will produce, but I haven't yet had that experience. And realistically, I rig these 2 ways, either under the cork with a 1/8 ounce jig head, or on the bottom with a 1/4 ounce jig head. And I use hoagies. They're just a plain lead with a kind of a spring to thread it onto, and I think it's a 4/0 Gamakatsu hook. And I can assure you that these things are painful when they bury into your thumb. They're sharp too. And that right there has caught most of my speckled trout this year. I was real iffy about using a plain jig head. I've always been nervous about it until I took a fishing trip with a buddy of mine that actually forced me to do it all day. We went out on this boat and we caught a full limit of trout with nothing but 1/4 ounce and 3/8 ounce jig heads. No corks. And after that, I've really learned to enjoy it. And with the matrix shad, the cool thing about these is you can either bump them and just kind of bounce them up and down, or if the conditions are right and it works for you, you can throw it out and let it sit, and then just give it a quick jerk to get the tail moving, and then you can swim it back in like a bass fishing swim bait. And we've caught a lot of fish like that. They're very hard and they're very durable, which has actually led to a problem because we started the season with spinner baits and buzz baits using these, and we found we had real problems with these when rigged weedlessly, which leads us to my redfish lures. What I have here is a inline buzz bait rigged weedlessly with, this is a saltwater assassin dye dapper, just a basic paddle tail lure. And I have an inline spinner also rigged weedlessly, and this is a Zoom Super Fluke paddle tail. I haven't used this one yet. I just wanted to try a different color. But what we found were these more bass-driven lures in the Saltwater Assassin line are far less durable than the matrix shad. They're softer material and they tear up real easy, but when you rig them weedless and bury the point in the top of them, you can actually still get hook sets. And we found that when we switched to these, we managed to keep bass and redfish on the hook far longer. And our two colors this year have been the Saltwater Assassin Chicken on the Chain has been hugely productive. It's this green kind of sparkly flake with the chartreuse, and the sparkle chartreuse has also been hugely productive. In my last fishing video, all those redfish we caught in Delacroix were off of this Saltwater Assassin sea shad in the sparkle chartreuse. And they come in two sizes, and I've caught fish on both, either the short or the long, so I keep a little bit of each around. And when they're not, well, all of these inline baits just thread onto an existing kind of a swim bait hook. So they use a weighted, and I usually go for a 1/8 ounce, especially if I'm going to run a spinner or a buzz bait, a 1/8 ounce swim bait hook that just kind of clamps on the split ring. So we keep quite a few of these around. And there's two types. There's the type with the spring here, which you thread the lure on, and then there's a more traditional kind of a bass fishing worm hook type that you just run through the lure. And both have produced for us. They both have positives and negatives. In my last redfish video, when we finally caught all those big fish, the combination was a 1/8 ounce Gamakatsu, I think it's a 3/0 swim bait hook, and the 5-inch Saltwater Assassin sea shad in this sparkle chartreuse color. And hopefully, now that I've got a new camera and I'm playing with a new setup, I'm going to put together a small series of videos about how I rig all of this stuff. So redfish we've caught on all three ways. We've caught buzzbait redfish, we've caught spinnerbait redfish, and we've caught just using the Saltwater Assassin sea shad. And the cool thing about that is we've also caught bass on all three of those setups too. In this neck of the woods, largemouth get mixed in pretty good with the redfish. So where there's one, there's another, and this gave us a little bit of versatility. Now, more on the trout side are these. I should have gotten out a bigger one, but it's voodoo shrimp. And these have been amazingly productive. I had one of my earlier videos where I was throwing nothing but a voodoo shrimp in glow and caught a trout limit. This one's in natural, and they come in various different sizes, and they advertise as being like Kevlar filled, and they say you can catch 50 fish with them. Well, I can tell you from experience that I have one of these that has had at least 75 fish on it and is still good to go. So these have been a real good addition to the tackle box. Voodoo also makes a mullet, which I haven't personally used, but I can tell you has caught speckled trout. And this is a big one. I actually recently did a video with their crickets and said that they didn't work and I wouldn't buy them and you shouldn't have them around. And I will tell you the total opposite about the gulp shrimp. These are work, they're productive, and they're painfully simple. A lot of guys online will tell you can rig them weedless. A lot of guys will tell you can rig them, and I've tried it and have had minimal success. What they worked for me as is I've just had a live bait rig and then just clip the tail on one of these and fish it just like I would a live shrimp, and it's produced every time I've done that. So speckled trout, flounder, and redfish, all by just treating gulp shrimp as almost like live bait. And the two that have produced the most are the Glow and the Natural have put fish in the boat. And that leaves us with the Gold Spoon. If you've ever read a fishing magazine in Southeast Louisiana, they'll tell you that this is a redfish killer. And I personally have never so much as gotten a bump off of one. But in our last video, you saw Skunk Master's 31 inch redfish. His kayak personal best was caught on a Gold Spoon. I was there, I saw it. These do work. I personally have had no luck. And the cool thing is they're fairly weedless, so in a lot of areas where there's weeds, you can toss this. And the only thing that's left is live bait, and the two options down here are minnows and shrimp. And hopefully in the coming weeks we're going to go down to Grand Isle and we'll be able to show you a difference between those two. But there you have it. That is every artificial lure that we've caught an inshore fish on this year. Hey, Jeremy from Lucky Out Outdoors, and if you like what you see, make sure you click like on the video and subscribe to our channel. You can also check us out on Facebook and Instagram.